Hi guys, Catriona here, and we're going to chat today about genealogy and ancestry. So, welcome in. As usual, we're going to wait a couple of minutes and let people join in. And my PC has just decided to die, because that's how I can see what you guys are saying to me. Hi. So if you've got any Scottish ancestry, any Scottish DNA, any interest in trying to trace any Scottish lineage, then this is the Monday night genealogy ancestry session is what we're doing. So come away in to my nice cozy fire because we will have other pictures there soon. So I can see Shannon's just joined and Susie's just joined. Hello guys. Let me just get us up here because that's what I've been doing all day is ancestry research. Oh, Helma's going to put a nice. He's going to put a nice picture behind me that he just painted. We're going to raffle that one off, actually.
No, they can buy it for $1 million.
It's a sin because the people on Insta can't see it because of this silly way that it shows itself. Anyway, that painting is a nice stag. It's in our Instagram. Let me just see if I can just move you guys. There we go. That's the stag painting there that we're talking about. Anywho. Just you're on a couple of tripods here. I don't want you to fall. And then yeah. So let's just see who we've got. So guys, just bear with me. We had a bit of a delay in our computer setup. So bonsoir, Jean-Philippe.
That's the stag.
Oh God, I can hear myself. There we go. Fixed. This is so I can see you. Okay, so the point of tonight's chat is genealogy and ancestry. So thank you to everybody who's joining in. You'll see I made a bit of an effort. So I'm wearing a wee dragonfly here that the lovely one of my lovely guests got for me, and some earrings I got as well. So I'm feeling very 80s, actually, 1980s fashion. Hi Amanda, hi Patrick, hi Ian, and we've got some tour guys coming in on the Instagram as well, and I can see that I'm also watching. So we've got people from all over New York and all over the world, and Florida and Scotland coming into the chat. Jean-Philippe, just quickly, the painter is Helmut, my other half. He's the one who painted that. He painted all these pictures you see behind me. I don't need to go to a gallery and buy art. He does them all of these. I've got a lion, I've got a leopard, I've got some sort of scene, some other stags over there. So yeah, I don't need a gallery. We used to run an art gallery a couple of years ago. So there you have it. So if you want it, call me. Because Jean-Philippe is on, I may as well start off with my connection to the Clan Ramsay, because I know a lot of you know this already, but I am now the Scotland and UK Commissioner for the Clan Ramsay. So if you are related to the clan, any way, shape or form, or you know a Ramsay, I'm your person that you need to talk to. So I took up the post in 2019, and so far it's been quite quiet because of this virus. Usually we would be organising various different events and things for anyone who has a connection to the clan, or to the family, I should say. So yeah, so if you have any connection, then yeah, get in touch with me. And I know that we've got a couple of Ramses coming in a minute. So we're just going to start off with a few problems again, because I know that people listen to this at different times. So you might not have seen my previous videos. So I'll just start off with a few of the basics if you're doing your ancestry. And that is to try and take websites such as Ancestry.com and Find My Past and all these other ones with a bit of a pinch of salt, because they're not always accurate, and a lot of the time they are using other people's research, and you don't know how good their research was, so you can just go through it. So I found a few snags today that I can't verify based on the information that the lovely Patty you gave me earlier on. Hi Patty. So it's really important that when you're doing your research that you try and verify and always work backwards. So if you can find birth certificates, marriage certificates, that's great. If not, it's going to be very difficult to verify that that other person was your ancestor. I saw in a group today on one of the genealogy websites or family Scottish websites, you know, everybody again is related to William Wallace or they're related to Robert the Bruce. Now, the probability of that is actually quite high given the statistics and how we all work from, you know, generations, how many more kids and more people come from those people. So it makes sense. I think it's like, what, 6 people removed or something like that. So it does work. And there is a possibility, but you are one of hundreds of thousands potentially who are also related to them. So I wouldn't necessarily take that with any real, unless you are somebody of the nobility now, it would be incredibly hard to verify that that is in fact your ancestor. In fact, even the nobility we have now, we don't even know. I mean, they might have been a bastard. They might have been a product with the gardener or something like that. It's not necessarily, or one of the footmen. It doesn't mean that that's going to be your ancestor for sure. And they're still working on all the DNA things. They don't even know if Robert the Bruce that they have at Dunfermline is in fact the real Robert the Bruce. It is disputed that that is in fact David the First of Scotland and not Robert the First. Although we do know that he was buried there, it's just where. So there you go. So that's my little disclaimer as soon as we start, before anyone starts off by saying that they know for a fact that they're related to any famous Scot. It's incredibly difficult to verify that. And if you can't verify it and you can't fact check it, I'm not taking it. So it's as simple as that. I just want to quickly say a few highs. We've got hi Helen in Skelmerley. We've got Victor. Yes, oh, you wear the Ramsay tartan. Yep, that's our tartan. I do need to get myself another Ramsay blue. Although I think my mum has just joined us. She's making one at the moment. She's making me a nice Ramsay blue jacket, I think. There we go. So we'll get started. So when you are looking at your family tree, the next thing to do is to go to a website called Scotland's People. So if you have access to Scotland's People, you basically pay for credits, and that is the actual records for Scotland. So that is their online archives basically that you are looking at. So you are looking directly at the source rather than going through from Peter to Paul and all that. So you go straight to the source. You can do different things, because a lot of people have been asking me this as well. When you're doing your name searches on Scotland's People, the names aren't always spelt the way that they are today. So there can be differences in the spelling and also mistakes when the original people were writing it down. So it's important to put in a fuzzy name match, or starts with, or sounds like one of those options you'll see in the drop down. I mean, I was just today and I was looking for John Witherspoon, and I checked in fuzzy name matches and it had John, but they had spelt it wrong. They'd spelt it J-H-O-N and then Heather Spoon, so W-H-E-E-T-H. Anyway, it was a really bizarre spelling of the name. So you're seeing stuff like that happen all the time. And when you see that, it doesn't mean that that's not your ancestor. It just means that there's a high likelihood that they misspelt the name. And I've said this before, I've seen the same person have their name spelled in so many different ways for the same, for the same person, from their birth to their marriage to their death. It is all been spelled differently, and that could come from slight illiteracy from the person. It can come from a misunderstanding or kind of apathy to the people, that the clerks who are writing it down and recording it, to just it actually being spelled differently back then to what we have today, because our language has also progressed. So it's like really important to think about that when you are doing your Scottish research. But really important if you are like elsewhere in the world, and you're not in Scotland, because if you're in Scotland it's going to be slightly easier, or if there was only a minor discrepancy where somebody was born in India, like for example my children, my mother was born in Scotland, I was born in Africa, but my kids are now born in Scotland again, so therefore it's still quite easy to trace that line back. But if you're in America and you are generation after generation, I'm just giving American as an example, if you're generation away, it's important before you start looking for your Scottish lineage to start looking at your own direct lineage. So this is why I say work back the way. So if you can't verify that that was your ancestor in Texas, then it's going to be very difficult to verify the connection between them and somebody in Scotland, if that makes any sense to you. So it's always important to do as much as you can for yourself, using whatever information you have to your disposal, whether that's family, whether you've got the birth certificates, the marriage certificates on your person, or whether you use a local genealogist in the States or in Australia or in Canada to do that kind of work for you before you come to Scotland, because that's where things get a little bit confusing. Now I can access quite a lot of the US records through Ancestry and other tools, but it gets very complicated because each country has their own rules and how they record things and what they want for it. Even between Scotland and England or Scotland and Ireland, it's different. So it's always important to work back as much as you can and use local people. So I specialise obviously in Scottish ancestry. So if you have anything Scottish related, I'm your lady. If you have anything Irish related, we've got some contacts over there who I could put you to. And if you are in the States, there's actually a genealogist that I'll be working with over in New York, and she can help with any US inquiries as well. And I think the US is actually far more difficult because you guys have got so many different states, and I don't know how it all works. So that's important. The other thing I would say, if you're doing your family research, and this is something I've been doing quite a lot if I'm stuck, is I try to see if I can find a clue elsewhere. So I try to check the internet first to see if this person or people around them were important within a particular community. So you might find grave records, you might find something something online. I've just found something online for this gentleman that I'm working for just by quickly searching him, and finding that in fact they were probably incorrect in how they explained this man's life in the 1930s when this article was published. So there's lots of things like that that you can have a look at. And then obviously going back to the source if you can get to Scotland, and that's why it's good to have someone like me. Once things have opened up again, I tend to go to the actual archives themselves. So you have, for example, the Inverclyde records here that are stored in Port Glasgow and in Greenock. You've got the Glasgow records, you have Paisley and Renfrewshire records, you have Ayrshire records. Although if you have any connection with Ayrshire, at the moment there's a bit of a problem because the centre that they're building a new centre to house the records, a kind of new experience when you go to visit. That's only going to be ready next year. So unfortunately you cannot access any of their archives until it's opened. They've taken them all out. There used to be 3 different locations for them. They've now put them all together and shipped it down to Ayr. So if you have any Ayrshire folk within your line, you might have to wait a wee bit, or kind of at least for certain things if you hit a stumbling block, which is kind of like for me, because a lot of my folk are Ayrshire. So what I mean by the 3 sites is because Ayrshire's actually split into 3. You've got North Ayrshire, you've got South Ayrshire, what's the other one? East Ayrshire. Yeah? East Ayrshire. Anyway, now I'm confusing myself.
No, it's North Ayrshire, Ayrshire and South.
And South Ayrshire.
I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, now I've just got myself confused because I'm thinking about Renfrewshire. Anyway, so you've got 3 locales and they have all come together, which in their main base will be in Ayr. So once that opens, hopefully, if you have any Kennedy connections, if you're interested in Burns, so many things down in Ayrshire way. The Ramsays, myself, you know, if you've got any heritage in this area, you're going to have to wait till next year to get access to the archives. Soon though, I'm going to be heading back the way towards Arbroath to going back to their archives. They have a few documents for me waiting from the late 18th century and the early 19th century that I'm working on for one of my guests. I was making a bit of a breakthrough, and then COVID hit, and sadly they've closed all the sites, so I can't access it because it's one of them ones that you have to put on the white gloves and go down, and you have to actually be there in person and so on. So yeah, it's one of my favourite things, and I'm looking forward to getting back to Arbroath. And then I've actually found, last time I was there, I was able to find from the old, in the 1970s in Arbroath. So if anyone's got any Arbroath history, if you go to their archive centre in near Forfar, you'll see that there is an old graveyard map, cemetery map they did of the Angus County way back in the 1970s. And so they recorded all the graves and so on that were legible back then, were still in a decent state. So some graves, if they're not there, it doesn't mean that they weren't there to start with. It just means that by 1970 they either had fallen down or been removed or something to that effect. So anyway, I went there and I was able to find a number of gravestones that belong to this lady's family. The one I was looking for, I still can't find. She has vanished into thin air, unfortunately, and these things do happen sometimes. I have not been able to source her death or her burial. And she's a Ramsay, well, married a Ramsay, sadly. which is also not as uncommon as it sounds, because sometimes these things happen and things are not recorded right, or they've been lost over the past 200 years. So yeah, we have to go with what we've got. But yeah, she's not buried there. I did check that. That was my other... I literally went through every single name in the cemetery. So I'm just going to quickly have a quick look at the comments. So we've got Donna Ann, we've got Laura. Hi Laura. So Kelly says, I finally learned some of my ancestry. My mother is Borland. Found out our ancestors are from Ayrshire and we belong to the Boyd clan. Was very excited to learn this. There you go. So you're one of those ones that are going to have to wait. I know quite a few Borlands actually. There you go. So that's quite cool. And where are you based, Kelly? Are you in... I could probably just check your profile. I don't want to intrude and leave my spot here. Oh, there we go. So let's just see. It's a Monday, guys. Should all be cheery, nice and cheery. So we've got a few more folks. Hi, Efog. Nice to see you here. And hopefully our connections are remaining okay, because I know that they have been a bit glitchy recently. So let's see. Not got you, Kelly. I think there's a slight delay. So we'll have to wait for that. So anyway, so as I was saying, I'll be going to the Arbroath graveyard, and I have plotted out, I have different books. So basically every genealogy job I do, or ancestry job I do, I get a new little notebook that I make up, and in that I do kind of from start to end, you know, as I'm working through their tree. And if I get stuck, I mark it and I take a post-it note and I stick a post-it note and write on it, and so on and so forth. Well, I went down, and so Deb, when you get my workbook for you, once we're finished with this, you're going to see lots of numbers. That was how they actually indexed all the graves. So I had to cross-reference all and index all the different graves, and then go back to another book which they had also written down the graves and see if I could find it there. But no, I couldn't find this woman. But I will be going to the graveyard and finding it, because I have marked it on which aisle and where nearabouts it is in Arbroath Abbey. So they have been buried at the Abbey itself, which is quite cool. So I'll be going there. When I was there, I was so busy, because I was so busy trying to find Margaret, and it was winter time. It was in January I went, that it just, we wanted to catch the light, so I was like racing against time trying to find all the stuff in this really old like library building, and then we finally got to the Abbey and they had closed the graveyard, and I could have maybe gone through the bowling green, but I decided maybe somebody wasn't going to be there, so we just called it a day, and I have to go back anyway. So once I do, I'll post it here, and you can have a look at my workings. And I know Deb is excited to see, because her ancestor is a really, really cool chap, who was known as the first poet of this wee place in Canada, and he also was really important during the Napoleonic Wars, or just before they really kicked off. So I hope we find enough information about this guy to get some sort of plaque, or some sort of something erected in his honour in Arbroath, for others to go and see. A really interesting man. And in fact, because I've got you, this is one of my favourite things. And I found it because I told you guys I do these things all the time, and I go and try and find other information about these people. And hi Dennis, and that's great. So you're in Canada as well. So let's see if we can get this chap that I'm looking for is a guy called John Taylor, okay, of a place called Guelph in Canada, okay, and he's known as the first poet. So he emigrated, we're not quite sure exactly when, because this is what we're really trying to find. But he wrote a poem, kind of song, and it was supposed to be, it was supposed to go to the song, it's sung to the music of Wearing of the Green. Now, I'm going to see if I can quickly find that for you, and I'm not going to do too much because I don't want Facebook to stint my, or mute my video. So I'm just going to see what did I say it was called? To the music of the Wearing of the Green. So I'm just going to put this on. To the music. Oh, no, I'm not. So what I'm going to do quickly is I'm just going to mute myself here. Okay, there we go. So if you guys can hear this, this is how it should sound. Let me just put it on. Skip that. There we go. There you go.
The shamrock is by law forbid to grow on Irish ground. St. Patrick's Day no more will keep his colours can't be seen. For they're hanging men and women for the wearing of the green.
There you go. So I won't play any more because I'll get into trouble. But I'll read out this chap's poem. Now, bearing in mind, this man went from Arbroath in Scotland, where he had been born pretty much, grew up his whole life, married, had his children, and then he leaves with, we believe, his new wife to Canada. And there is some stories that we're trying to verify at the moment on whether we know that he was promised land for his commendation during the Napoleonic Wars, but yeah, we can't find anything specific to that. It's weird that he ended up in Guelph, and Guelph is really important for those who are watching, because Guelph was set up by a chap who's buried in our local cemetery here in Greenock, a guy called John Galt. So if you come to Greenock, you can go into the old Inverkip cemetery and you will find John Galt there. But I'm going to read you this poem because it's really sweet, and it's his poem, and this was part of the Guelph Evening Mercury, I believe, or the Guelph Mercury. I don't know what it was called in the original time. And it was published on the 4th of October 1836. Okay, so we know that he wrote this poem there. So his poem goes like this. So I feel really privileged to be able to say this actually. So, think of great Columbus, the man of worth and fame, who found this great continent that should have borne his name. In his voyage of discovery no dangers did appall, or we might not now be singing at a Paisley Block Ball. At a Paisley Block Ball, at a Paisley Block Ball, or we might not now be singing at a Paisley Block Ball. Now, before I continue, they called this part of Guelph, because a lot of Scots had settled there, the Paisley Block, okay? That's why he's referencing it. And every year, probably after the harvest, I think it was, they used to have this big party for everybody. And this is why he wrote this particular poem. So this is when he talks of Scotland. Our old mother country, the land of the brave, so deeply sunk in debt, the sponge can only save. The thought of a civil war we did not like at all, for fighting's not so pleasant as a Paisley Block ball. At a Paisley Block ball, at a Paisley Block ball, for fighting's not so pleasant at a Paisley Block ball. So we left our native land and those we dearly love. The tears did flow in torrents while the vessels oft did move. We trusted in the ocean, whatever did befall. So here we are rejoicing at a Paisley Block ball. At a Paisley Block ball, at a Paisley Block ball. So here we are rejoicing at a Paisley Block ball. Our friends and relations that we did leave behind, relief from their burdens we hope they soon will find. That they are happy, we wish them one and all. We are here with mirth and glee at the Paisley Block ball. At the Paisley Block ball, at a Paisley Block ball, as we hear with mirth and glee at the Paisley Block ball. When we came to the wild land all covered with wood, we soon made a clearance where mighty timber stood. By steady perseverance, we made many a tree to fall, which led us on to comforts and a Paisley Block ball. And a Paisley Block ball, and a Paisley Block ball, which led us all to comforts and a Paisley Block ball. Now to the ladies, the partners of our lives, we wish every comfort to sweethearts and wives. They're like as many stars all shining in the hall, and move about most gracefully at the Paisley Block ball. He's a charmer. And then I think you get the chorus. Then we'll go to the next bit. From all the ills of life, we wish they may be free. Without them the place a wilderness would be. We'll drink to the ladies' healths, I know you join me shall. For their beauty is the lustre of the Paisley Block ball. And it carries on. Hi Ellen, hi E. We have horses, cows and pigs. We have poultry and sheep. We have produce for to sell and plenty still to keep. We have instruments to cut and cattle for to haul. So we'll toast our noble selves at the Paisley Block ball. And then the next, it goes on. And it ends with, now to conclude, your patience I will praise, and thank you for your chorus unto my humble lays. Though my song it be but homespun and but a silly scrawl, it may set wiser heads to work for next Paisley Block ball. So there you have it. Isn't that lovely? The first ever poem written by John Taylor Sr. at the time for his new land. A little bit of fun, you know. They went to this place, and I think that sums it up nicely. Saying goodbye to friends and family at home, going to this new land that's completely alien, just full of wood, because in Scotland we don't have forests like you do in Canada. And then they just felled it and started. I mean, they didn't even have, from what I know, they didn't even have a mill in Guelph when John moved there. So they had to go like miles and miles and miles down the road to get flour and a basic necessity. If you're making bread or anything like that, you need flour. So just think about that. It's mental. There's quite a few really sad poems in here as well, in the same article that I found. And this might, because we've still got some time, I might read you some of these poems, because I think they're quite good for for those who have Scottish ancestors to know what their ancestors did when they left. It's really heartfelt, actually. There's this one where this man is just beside himself with grief about leaving Scotland, and I was sitting here in tears reading it. But there's some others here. This is one about the famine in Ireland, printed in 1846. It's just so hard to read these things because you think, I don't know if you can cope with this, by the way. That's why I'm not doing it, because you'll all be greeting, you'll all be in tears. But I think I will, because I'll do it for my Irish ancestors as well. So this is what it says here. The following lines have been sent for publication. They were composed by the late Thomas Murphy, father of John Murphy, of Mount Tara, Guelph Township. They depict in forcible language the miseries of that terrible period. Hark, dearest island, affected for ages, the victim of famine, oppression and grief, that moistens the eyes of your historic pages. The spot is scarce met that treats of relief. Now ruin's black mantle in sorrow hangs o'er you, with pestilence raging and famine before you, that oppresses the feelings of those that adore you. Thy woes are increasing, sweet land of the brave. How sad must thy fields look, though spangled with flowers, when eyes dimmed with famine behold you with pain, whilst hunger increases and pestilence lowers, and death mowing down where there's naught to sustain. To beg is in vain, for all tell the same story, the infant expiring, the youthful and hoary, prostrated in prayer to the God of all glory, they call out despairing and yet call in vain. Despair's darking round like a cloud fraught with venom, corroding the vitals that famine subdued, and the ports by fierce tyrants are closed up against them, which leaves them to linger and famished for food. The fireside mirth and the glance of the lover, the songs of the bards and the tales of the rover, and thy heart-melting friendship, dear, Erin is over, for the hand-clasping seed, Cuchmila Falce, is gone. The dim sunken eyes of the pale grieving mother, and wasted with tears o'er her long stinted brood, in vain is the soothing no language can smother, then cry out like spectres still asking for food. Alas, they complain, she has not left to give them, nor no distant prospect of hopes to relieve them. They cry till they sleep, but the morning deceives them. The evening complaints are still feebly renewed. The strong man is weak and his sight is declining. The bold and aspiring move deviously on, all blighted by hunger, disease and repining, and the rose-blooming cheeks of your daughters are wan. How sour are the dregs of the gall they are tasting, whilst revelling tyrants sit sumptuous wasting, and the spoils of distress they are wantonly wasting, nor deal out the crumbs to the widow's last groan. The graves of our fathers won't long be forsaken, whilst the waves of disease floats down to the tomb, and no feeble gleam through the darkness is breaking, the blackness thickening cloud of distress to illume. The shamrock is seared and the flowerets are fading, through floods and distress the pale victims are wending. Though sympathy's arm is now stretched out to aid them, still thousands of brave ones are gone to the tomb. Though far from the land of my youth and ambition, my spirit steals back to your home with a sigh that melts through the heart at your awful condition and forces those tears that fall hot from the eye. Of solace bereaved we can only condole you, and console you. I think that's supposed to be, it's mistyped. Oh, sorry, no, it is only condole you. Our might we have gained with a hope to console you, and wish you were here with our friends to enroll you. Missed plenty to live and contentedly die. It's awfully sad. Had to chuck a few back there. It was so hard. Because you think, the thing that struck me about reading these poems, and I would never have found them unless I was doing that piece of Ancestry for Deborah, to find all these old poems from the original settlers in Guelph, was just to see how much feeling these people had. Sometimes you can just, you know, put people into boxes in history. Okay, they were this and they were that and they were this and they were that. But you don't realise the emotion that one must have felt losing a relative or family, or being completely and utterly helpless to you do the basics for yourself, like feed yourself, whilst the landowners who own the land are taking perfectly healthy potatoes and selling them for a profit in England. So it must have been absolutely awful to go through that kind of pain and anguish. And a lot of the Irish got a really hard time wherever they went, after having basically been kicked down so far. You know, a land of poets as well. They're a land of thinkers. So anyway, it just gets me a wee bit upset. So we're going to see, because there's another one. So apologies, I got a wee lump in my throat there. We've got a few. We've got one that this chap kind of wrote, George Peary. So he was a relative of son. Anyway, this is his poem. So it's kind of bringing in some Scots here. Okay. So, whoever has heard of Illinois but knows how in that state the crow is, in seed time, quite a huge annoyance, exactly then his thith and duly, as if he knew the season truly, by what the learned call clairvoyance. A farmer in the land of prairie had planted out his field quite early, thus hoping to escape detection, but scarcely was his corn covered, when o'er his head a legion hovered, resolved on personal inspection. With voice and rifle as he might, he cheered and charged them left and right. Their number grew and more enormous. They cawed, they scratched, they hopped, they fed. Troy Warren wings waved o'er his head, quite a la mode Cornelius Corvus. Our friend, now almost in despair, bethought him of a ruse de guerre, and set about it on the spot. Some grain he steeps in alcohol, then up and out the sows in the hole, tried broadcast o'er his corn plot. The felon crows with stomachs empty rejoice among the unlooked for plenty. The bait is swallowed in a chatter, but soon each rogue begins to feel so very queer from head to heel. Sorry, it's just a bunch of crows getting drunk, right? He wonders what can be the matter. The steam is up, a polka ho. They hop, they skip, they jump, Jim Crow. Like other bipeds in their glory, all hands aloft, up, up, oh rare. Their summer setting in the air. All cawing, screaming, con amour. Behold them now in sombre mood, high perched within a neighbouring wood, discussing of their doings errant. Through whole they argued the affair. It boots not that the muse declare, but the result was soon apparent. On every patch of corn round, the crows by hundreds still were found, unchanged in habits or appearance. We don't pretend the birds of reason, yet not a crow, through all the season, revisited our farmer's clearance. So there you go, a wee bit of hilarity. I want to just quickly find this one. So here's one from, again, lyrics by the late George Peary Esquire, printed in 1870. So hopefully this is quite nice. Again, this kind of coming up from Aberdeenshire. Far from clan Alpen dew, wanders the bonnet blue, still to that magnet true, turns his heart thither. For though his fate may part, land of his love thou art, ever the Scottish heart warms to the heather. There you go. So you can see how these people felt about Scotland. There's lots. There's another one here, and they all talk about Scotland, which is interesting. So this was printed in 1851. There's a glen by the Gairn, a valley on Dee, than the vale of Avoca, 'tis dearer to me, where the rush of the Linn is in every ravine, and the birch hangs her tassels o'er fountain and stream, and the bleak Loch Nagar in his mantle of snow looks down on the rocks and the rivers below. From the crest of the mountain my eye first looked forth on the green waves that girdle the shores of the north, and they told me far o'er the fathomless main was the land, hence the gold and the emerald came. And I deemed that the cloud in its vapoury fold, as it glowed in the east, was the island of gold. And I longed, when the cuckoo was pondering her flight, to go forth with her then to the region of light. I turned to the valley, but there was alone the fane where I worshipped, the glory was gone. I have looked upon mountains more mighty by far than the proud peaks that gather around Loch Nagar, and by bark has been bounding o'er waters that be as the wave of the ocean to that of the Dee. I've stood in the mist of the land of my dreams. There are gems in the mountains and gold in the streams, and the heavens around it are cloudless and bright, a glory by day and a halo by night. And the earth yields her harvest and oceans her spoil, and saddened by sorrow and tarnished by toil. And strange birds are there in their gorgeous dyes that like winged flowers float in these balmy skies. And fountains are flashing in rivers of song, and glancing and gliding at the valleys along. Oh, who that the bliss of such fair land might claim, would sigh to go over the wild waves again. They have built me a bower in the valley so fair, they've called it my home, but my heart is not there. There are things to admire, but to love there are none. The land may be Eden, it is not my home. Once more on the billow, yet not as before, for the rush of the east wind gives rapture no more. Yet the sail of my galley is spreading as wide, and fleet of yore she bounds over the tide. Oh, fair must the isle be, and flowery and bright, that will win her to linger an hour in her fight. Away o'er the waters, away for the land, where the giant St Kilda does sentinel stand. And the prow of my bark is again on the shore, and I look to the mountains that look on Dalmore. I turn from the ocean to kneel by the Dee, and to vow there's no land like my ain country. So there you go. It's just really heartbreaking, really, if you read these poems, to see what these early settlers felt. They must have felt so lonely and so alien. And they must have just had this complete longing for their home, which was an incredibly difficult feat to do, to come back here. There's another hilarious one, but it's a bit too long. There's some here from some English chaps who emigrated as well. There is, but not the one I'm looking for, because there's one that was just heartbreaking. Some religious ones, some biblical ones. Let me see if I can find it. Reflections. There's some ones about meeting some Indians in here as well. The Girls of Guelph. I'm sure who wrote that. Charles wrote that in 1864. So obviously try to get a lady. So yeah, I can't find it. So I'll have to find it again at some point. But and I'll post it, the link actually in here, and you can have a wee read at the poems yourself, because they are really heartwarming. So here's I'll do one last one, and this is again, this could be a song, so I'm just reading it, but it says verses suggested on seeing a caged skylark in Mr. Glendinning's saloon, Guelph. So this was posted, published rather, on the 21st of May 1853 in the Guelph Advertiser. So there you have it. So here goes. I'm not at home in this sorry jail. Oh, let me out to soar on high, away with the balmy breeze to sail, filling the air with melody. Oh, let me be out to dwell with the flowers, and sleep by their side through the night, rising at morn midst dewy showers, away up to the gates of light. Fluttering the fleecy clouds among, beyond the reach of human eye, singing o'er a grateful song to him who made the earth and sky. To bid your birds their voices raise, for all the joys the seasons bring. If ignorant of songs of praise, I will teach them how to sing. Oh, let me out your woods to see, where the wild deer at freedom roam, the boasted land of liberty, the exile's dear and happy home. Then give me freedom, for I was free, as the breeze that fond my speckled breast, to sing and soar o'er glen and lea, in all their summer's beauty dressed. Soaring high at the early dawn, afar where the wild the heather waves, singing oft times unheard by man, a requiem o'er the martyrs' graves. I'll explain that in a minute. Then to my secret home would fly, among the grass with dewdrops pearled, for though my song is in the sky, my home is lowly in the world. Such was my life in Scotia's isle, where I again would like to be. I'm alone at home in this prison vile, oh that I again were free. So that's a really sad one, because the guy's basically feeling completely trapped. He's not free. He doesn't feel like he needs to be back in Scotland. That's where he's going to feel free again. And he makes references to the martyrs of the 1920s here. So he's obviously went to Canada in a means to do whatever he needs to do, get away from the shackles of living in Scotland at the time, and realised that he would rather be back at home. So that's quite sad. So hopefully, I don't know, you guys, I don't know if you guys are even enjoying this or not. Hopefully you are. Sugar, 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 sugar. That was me. Sorry guys, I've nearly pulled you out. Almost like, you're going to kill me. There we go. So, So Efog, that's nice. Your great granny and grandpa from Donegal, Sweeney clan, and Scottish mercenaries. Before that, there you go. So you were probably affected by all of that as well. Darrow and Cassidy. Yep, so you are Irish. I can tell by your wee clover. So have we got any questions tonight before I bawl my eyes out at some of those poems? I just, that's what I do in my spare time. I read old poetry, and I love this stuff because this is coming from real men and women. You know, this is not, you know, some famous poet. This is just some guy who got there and who went there and thinking that would make his riches, he would make his money, or he just couldn't stay in Scotland anymore for whatever reason. So that's why I like it. So if you are doing these things, if you are looking at doing your ancestry, try and search things on the internet. You never know what you're going to find, and I've managed to find that. So yeah, we're just about to finish. It's nearly hour up. So I think you're right, Cecily. I think you're 100% right. Cecily's saying, enjoying it. That last one was somewhat reminiscent of what is happening right now. It's true. Patrick says, my Elliots left Scotland and went to Nova Scotia, where the 7 brothers spanned out over Canada. Some came to New York State. So yeah, just think how awful that must be. Just imagine tomorrow leaving. Nowadays we can catch flights. Fair enough, it's you know, you have to have the cash flow to be able to do it more often. But you know, I was born in Africa, and I do still have some family over there, and I can just take an aeroplane, 12 hours, and I'm pretty much there. Whereas back then, you know, you're on a 2-week voyage, and you don't know if you're going to survive it. One of the funny stories that's been passed down my line was my great uncle, or my great uncle. I need to figure that out. Anyway, he famously only had one eye. He had a glass eye, and he went on the voyage to the States. I think it was to New York that they came in. And as they were going in, so this is like the 1890s roughly, and as he was going over, you didn't have nice cabins. You were all like on the deck or wherever you went. And when he was sleeping, it was quite common for people to steal stuff from you as you were sleeping, but nobody would steal anything from him because he had this glass eye, so it looked like he was always looking. And that was the wee story, and apparently it's been verified by a relation who's over in the US right now, because they ended up settling in Oklahoma, and he remembers being a young boy and that old guy still being there and being frightened as a wee boy to see this little eye sitting next to the sink. So I thought that was quite funny. So no, we've all got these stories in our family, and if you did leave, if your ancestors did leave Scotland, it doesn't make you any less Scottish, because there's been a lot of debate about this at the moment. You're not Scottish in terms of nationality, but in terms of blood and affinity and what you feel and your ancestry, you are very Scottish or Irish or whatever it might be, or Italian. So don't listen to anyone who tries to go all placey on it. So hopefully you can come to Scotland at some point and retrace your steps with me. But I'm just going to say goodbye to our guys on Instagram quickly. It was lovely having you. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. This will be available for another day. So if you want to go back and watch it, it will be there. So take care. there we go. So the Instas are gone. And I'll be going now. Before I do though, I wanted to quickly mention that we are doing a special watch party tomorrow. It's going to be with myself and Agavo Brown from the Gallic Consultant for Outlander. So we're going to film it on Zoom tomorrow afternoon, and then we're going to play it as a watch party live for you guys tomorrow at 10 p.m. and both of us will be online for any questions that you might have. It's just a way that we can actually split the screen, you see. And then we're going to be doing an actual special event. It will be a paid event, right enough, but we're going to do a special series of specialist tours that you can join in with us. And I will be doing similar things with Zoom. So if you're interested and you want any help with your own family tree or your ancestry and you want to use me for an hour, we can do it through Zoom and share our screens. So that's quite good. So if you're interested, let me know. Just send us a wee message and I'll let you know what that would be. Other than that, guys, stay safe, stay home, and hopefully this will end soon. So take care, and I've just lost you again. There we go. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to go. I keep kicking that off its tripod there. So take care. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.